Hey guys, Jason here with Soulfire, and today I want to do a video particularly on marriage and for wives. How can you respond if you find your husband has been looking at pornography? Very difficult thing to talk about. It does prove and show how much pain pornography can bring into a relationship and particularly into a marriage. Now, one disclaimer here. In doing this video, I'm not saying that porn is a men's only issue. Certainly there are a lot of women who struggle with pornography, but I want to talk specifically today to wives. How can you respond if this comes up in your marriage? Well, 4 things I want to share with you. The first thing I want to share with you is that this is not your fault. Regardless of what your husband may have said, if he's had any excuses on this issue, regardless of what Satan has wanted to sow into your life and the lies he's tried to say to you that somehow this is your fault. If you maybe looked a different way, if you had been more available sexually, or if there's something that you could have done differently, and perhaps you have found that you are blaming yourself. Understand, this is not your fault. This is not about you. Now, obviously, when we talk about marital conflict, when we talk about difficulties in marriage, certainly both husband and wife need to be able to own their specific issues that have brought about the conflict, but this one has nothing to do with you. This is not your fault. Don't buy that lie. Don't let Satan throw that out at you. The second thing that I want to talk about is that you need to understand the nature of addiction. That this issue in your husband's life has a lot more to do than just his desire to see pictures or videos. And I'll set a link here to some of the other videos I've done about the addictive nature of pornography. But you have to understand, and this is not an excuse for your husband's behavior, you have to understand that internet pornography in particular is one of the most addictive forces in the universe. And that for most of the men that I'm helping, and my story is the same, this is something that came at them at a very young age, 10, 11, or 12, as we've given kids digital devices, full access to the internet without any accountability, and they fall into and they stumble onto pornographic content, and understand this is highly addictive. So given the addictive nature of this issue, of pornography in particular, it may help you to think about your husband more like a drug addict or like an alcoholic, and understand that there are some powerful addictive forces that are going on in his mind that are keeping him stuck, keeping him down in this sin. So that's the second thing that you've got to realize. The third thing that I want to talk about today along this issue is that we have an enemy who desires to destroy marriage. And as I see marriage today, I see pornography as one of his greatest tools to destroy the marriages that God has given us. If you think of how this tool can work, how this weapon can work in his hands, if he can get your husband stuck in pornography, he can ruin your marriage. That impacts you, that impacts your husband. If you've got kids, that impacts the kids. If you don't have kids yet, it can even prevent you from having children if it destroys your marriage. Satan knows he has a powerful tool to destroy your marriage. Given that he wants to destroy your marriage, understand that you have an incredible opportunity. You may not be there yet, and I get that. You have an incredible opportunity to bring the gospel into your marriage, to be a bearer of the gospel to your husband. Now, in 2007, my wife and I, in our first year of marriage, had to have some pretty hard conversations about my struggle and my addiction to pornography. And I remember saying to her in those days, given that I had just recently struggled and looked at porn, and I remember saying to her, "Do you still want to be married to me?" And I wasn't sure what she was going to say. But her gracious response, her forgiveness in my life did more to begin to jumpstart the healing and recovery process in my life than anything had before. So I want to challenge you that you, before God, with some peers that can support you, if you can get to the place where you can understand that you have a common enemy, you and your husband have a common enemy who's trying to destroy your marriage, can you bring the gospel, bring forgiveness, come alongside your husband and say, "I want to help you fight against this sin, not I want to fight against you." Now, granted, there might be some consequences that need to take place, and I get that. Granted, you might not be there yet. I don't want to excuse your husband's behavior at all. But can you seek the Lord and see if he can get you to the place to be a bearer of the gospel, to come alongside you for the sake of your marriage and to fight with your husband in this battle? The fourth and final thing I want to talk about along this issue of what to do if your husband has been looking at pornography is for you to come to the place and understand, what is it going to take to rebuild trust? that your husband is now on a recovery process. Your marriage is now in a recovery process, and what is it going to take to rebuild trust? Now I'm going to link here to a video of what does the recovery process take, and I want you, if you watch that, to understand that for a short period of time, your marriage and your husband may need drastic measures so that trust can be rebuilt, so that you can jumpstart the recovery process. So maybe for a year or two, he gets rid of that smartphone. You have serious boundaries. Use something like Covenant Eyes to monitor internet access. I want to challenge you to get in a support group. Can there be some people who can come around you to help you walk through this difficult process? And he absolutely needs to be in a recovery group of some sort with some other men who meet weekly or multiple times a week to talk about this. Consider something like the Conquer series or the Samson Society, or even Celebrate Recovery. Understand that rebuilding trust is going to take time, and that's the fourth thing I want to talk about. So I hope those four things were helpful as we talk about a difficult subject of how to rebuild trust, how to respond if your husband has been looking at porn. Check the description in this video just below. I'll put some links to some other resources that you can use. There are a lot of ministries that are working today to address this specific issue. If you're not plugged into a church, let me challenge you to get plugged into a church that has some small groups and some resources that can really come alongside you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon in the next one.